This is the Ford Bronco Wildtrak. This is the Ford Bronco Badlands.
And today we answer the question that has broke the internet. What is the better buy, the Badlands or the Wildtrak?
Hello everybody and welcome to Performance on Wheels. If you are new here, my name is Austin. My dad Todd and I make all types of different videos on all types of different cars. Now today we're going to check out and dive deep into the comparison between the Wildtrak Bronco and the Badlands Bronco. We need to give a huge shout out to Apple Autos, specifically Apple Ford Apple Valley here in Apple Valley, Minnesota, for providing us this Bronco Badlands. If you guys are interested in purchasing a new Bronco, be sure to check out Apple Autos. They have 3 different locations here in the Midwest, the top 3 Ford stores around. So be sure to check out the new Apple Ford White Bear Lake, Apple Ford Shakopee, and Apple Ford Apple Valley. With that all set aside, let's get into the video.
Through our Bronco ownership experience, we have now racked up over 40,000 miles of ownership, 23,000 of that being in the Wildtrak. We even had a big bend prior to the Wildtrak, so we have some seat time in that lower trim. And today we're really unpacking 2 of the models, 2 of the trims that are the most common cross-shop trims. The one that is directly behind me, the Badlands, that is known to crawl over rocks and hit the mountains, where over by Austin there on his right-hand side is the Wildtrak, made to go off jumps, hit the sand dunes, and get down and get dirty.
Now the Wildtrak over here starts at right around $60,000, while the Badlands that my dad is standing next to starts at about $50,000. However, you can spec a Badlands up so dang high to the point where the Wildtrak and Badlands can be actually very similar in price.
And those are exactly what we are showing you in today's video. The Badlands that is behind me has an MSRP on it of $65,000, and the Wildtrak that we owned had an MSRP at the time last year, 2023, of $64,000.
We're going to start by looking around the Bronco Badlands. Now we both have quite a bit of seat time behind the wheels of Badlands, and it was actually like pushing them to their limits. At the Bronco Off-Road Rodeo, taking them up mountains, really pushing them to their limits when it comes to articulation and playing around with that stay bar disconnect. It's very impressive what this thing can do.
Yeah, it truly is. And the stay bar disconnect that you are talking about is, you know, disconnecting the sway bar with a button up on the hero pad, which is one of the options that you can't even get on the Wildtrak. Even if you throw all the money at Ford, you still cannot get that feature on the Wildtrak. As we just show some of the cosmetic differences of the 2 models, let's just start on the front because that makes sense. The gray grille, although the exact same design as the Wildtrak, it's always going to be gray on the Badlands. And on the Wildtrak, that same design grille is always gloss black. By the way, the little clearance lights we have up here are aftermarket, and you can find them down in the description below if you like that look. Now, part of the video here is talking about the used market, but also the 2024 model year. We'll bring that up as well. So we have the modular grille that kind of came down from the Raptor, that whole concept of being able to bolt on different features and functionality and just kind of making it your own in those fixed tow hooks. So that is standard on the Badlands, where on the Wildtrak previously to 2024, although we still have a metal bumper, it's missing that modular feature, and we have completely different tow hooks.
And now a quick word from today's sponsor. This is the Highboy Max Pro electric scooter with a top speed of 22 miles an hour, featuring both drum and regenerative braking.
Come here and check out this cool tech. We've got a digital speedometer. We have 3 different drive modes. We have cruise control, we have a headlight, we have some sweet lights down below, and also we have a bell. Being car enthusiasts, we absolutely love hitting the racetrack. And one thing that has always been very enjoyable at the racetrack is having an e-bike. I cannot tell you how excited I am to have the Highboy scooter out at the racetrack this year, so we can cover all 4 miles of Road America, an amazing road course located in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. This Highboy is going to be able to manage all the terrain, both on and off-road, and be able to get us to all the different fun locations.
And using our discount code PWMAXPRO, you can get an additional 5% off of the currently on sale $659 Highboy Pro Max. Be sure to check out the link down in the description below. On the side of this Bronco Badlands, it actually looks identical to the Wildtrak. However, there are a few differences. This one is equipped with the Sasquatch package. Notice how I said equipped with the Sasquatch package. That is because the Wildtrak comes standard with the Sasquatch package, where here on the Badlands it is actually an option. Now that could be a benefit to some people who don't necessarily want those 35-inch tires, which are actually the same ones that you can find over on the Wildtrak, with actually the same wheels as well. However, you have a few different ring options for those beadlock capable wheels. With the Sasquatch package, you get Goodyear Territories. Without it, you get a set of 33-inch KO2s. Still a very good set of tires and overall setup for off-roading. Now, if we peek our head back here, this is where the biggest difference is between the Badlands and the Wildtrak. On the Badlands here, we have the Haas 2.0 suspension setup, where over on the Wildtrak, we have the Haas 3.0 suspension setup. Now, it may not look like a visually big difference here on the outside. However, I can assure you, once we get behind the wheel, it's going to be a pretty big change.
Quick pause before Austin continues. Let's talk about the Wildtrak on the used market, because this is a big deal. If you're in a 23 and above Wildtrak, that Haas 3.0, those bypass Fox shocks that are completely obvious if you look behind the wheel, that Haas 3.0 system was standard in 2023. Years prior to 2023, the Haas 3.0 was an option. So if you want what is really cool about the Wildtrak on the used market, make sure you get a picture of those shocks up front.
And on the bottom side of this Badlands, we have these rock rails, powder coated black standard, that match that front bumper. It looks super aggressive and they have a lot of functionality. Not standard over on the Wildtrak. And on the underside of this thing, we have bash plates that are standard. Just these big steel metal covers. And if we go over to the Wildtrak, it just doesn't have them. That was an option. On the Badlands model, we have ourselves a steel back bumper and 2 tow hooks standard. Over on the Wildtrak, it's a plastic bumper. Now, after I say all of these things out loud and go through all of this, it kind of makes you question, why is the Wildtrak more money than the Badlands? I just listed like 5 things that the Badlands has that the Wildtrak doesn't. So let's go over to that and show why.
As I am transitioning over to the Wildtrak here, Austin, great job on the Badlands. There's a few other things to talk about really quick about the Badlands. First of all, that $10,000 less starting MSRP, you have both engine options, meaning you have the 4-cylinder as well as the V6 as an option. You also have a standard transmission, that 7-speed manual, as well as the 10-speed automatic as options. You only have the ability to get the 2.7 liter V6 twin turbo EcoBoost over on the Wildtrak, and you only have the ability to get that 10-speed auto. So again, why would anyone choose the Wildtrak over the Badlands, knowing that you can make all these options and personalize that trim to your spec? In my opinion, the Wildtrak is the Bronco that you want to live with. It's the luxury Bronco that is off-road capable, right? So it has a lot of the options that come standard that are options over on the Badlands. So now we're talking about comfort features inside. The Wildtrak, it comes standard with the mid package, where that is an option on the Badlands. You can get the Luxe package on either vehicle, and essentially now we're just talking about things that come standard on the Wildtrak, right? So you start getting into the nitty-gritty of your adaptive cruise control, your heated seats, your Ford 360, like the different mid package and Luxe package things that are more likely to be on a Wildtrak. I mean, even silly stuff like your turn signals in your mirrors. You'll notice that this $64,000 Wildtrak has that, where the $65,000 Badlands doesn't. So like the 360 cameras, the Wildtrak has it, the Badlands doesn't. We're talking about the comfort features. Some might say there's still really cool features for off-roading. 360 camera, the terrain cameras, having that is cool for off-road, but maybe not necessary. At the end of the day, the Badlands comes out of the box kind of similar to a Wrangler Rubicon, where it is ready to hit the trails right out of the box with the options it has. Doesn't matter the engine, doesn't matter if you have Sasquatch or not. It comes with the standard features to go rock crawling, whereas the Wildtrak can maybe hit some small jumps and do it comfortably.
Then again, the question is, Why would you ever purchase a Wildtrak? And it ultimately just comes down to, if you're driving around the city, if this is a vehicle that you're probably never going to like push to the limits off-road, I honestly think the Wildtrak's a better buy over the Badlands. But if this is something that you're gonna go rock crawling in, if you're gonna go enjoy the trails, I would take the Badlands. However, it's kind of interesting when you go to the Bronco off-road rodeo, our instructors made it very clear that these two vehicles could do the exact same things off-road when it came to rock crawling. They said that it doesn't matter if you have the stay bar or if you're in the Wildtrak, you did the exact same things, you went the exact same routes, didn't make a difference. They made it very clear on that. Maybe that's just the trails that they specifically took us on, but based on talking to her instructor, she specifically kind of made it sound like it doesn't really matter and they can do the same things.
Yeah, they can do the same things, but ultimately with that disconnect of the sway bar, you have the ability to like have another tool in the toolbox. Whereas if you don't have the right tool in all circumstances, you might just have to work a little harder, right?
Yeah, exactly. So in some cases, it just has more tools readily available in the toolbox when it comes to a rock crawler. Let's hop on the interior quick and then we're gonna take these for a drive. However, I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys, the interior of these two are very, very similar.
We're gonna get into the inside here, and there are some differences that I think are notable, quite honestly, because I'm actually surprised by my opinion on this. But before we get there, let's talk about another used car buying tip. 2024, all Broncos have that big screen, that 12.3, 12.4, whatever the measurement is, but that big screen that you used to essentially only be able to get in 2023 and previously on the Lux package, if my memory is correct. So you could have a Badlands on previous years if you're buying used that just has that itty bitty screen. So just another thing to keep your eyes out for. 24 and newer, you're gonna have that big screen, which it is really a cool feature. It adds so much to the daily use of the Bronco. The other one works, it does its job, but it's definitely a different experience. So in the Badlands, we have the marine grade vinyl seats. And I'm not gonna lie, when we compare it to the fake leather seats on the luxury package of the Wildtrak, I love the feel, I love the look. I like the way the vinyl seats are in the Badlands way more than I like the seats in the Wildtrak. Going on that same note, now over in the Wildtrak, our accent color is blue, where in the Badlands, our accent color is orange, and I like the orange. Like, it really pops with the stitching they have on the dashboard. It really pops with the different handles, as well as the door storage. It just looks better in here. It truly looks better. It looks classier, I think. And let's not forget, again, to mention the fact that we have all of our hero switches up on the dashboard. There are some things we don't have, and some of that is because the Lux package. This is the mid package on this $65,000 Badlands. We have no power seats. We also have no camera. We're missing a few buttons here on the steering wheel for our adaptive cruise control. So there are some features that are being missed. Some of that has to do with the Lux package. I think everything that we just said has to do with the Lux package, if my memory is correct here. So just take that into account. Into the Wildtrak here, we have the two-tone like fake leather, which it does look cool, right? It looks classy because you have those two different colors, but I still think I would take that orange stitched vinyl in the Badlands over this specific spec. The other thing that just really stands out to me is that orange stitching on the dashboard of the Badlands, where we don't have that on the 23 Wildtrak here. I think it makes a big difference for the fit and finish of the car. Obviously, that doesn't add to function, it's merely aesthetic, but you can also see that blue accent color that I was referencing. It just doesn't pop as much, so it kind of blends in a little more. Some will like that, some won't. Just another thing to mention on the Lux pack and the Wildtrak that we're looking at that I haven't mentioned yet is, obviously I did talk about the cameras, but there's also the climate control. There's a difference there. We actually have the digital readout of what the temperature is in the dual zone climate control, where it just looks a little cheaper if you don't have those options. There's one key item that we haven't talked about yet, and it's probably one of the most important items, but we need to get behind the wheel to tell you all about it. Going over one of the roughest roads here by our filming location in town. I think we need to ride in both of them before we fully make comments here, but we felt it. You were going over the bumps and it's soaking them up pretty good. It's not like we're jarred all over the place. So it'll be interesting to get into the Wildtrak after we're in the Badlands. We've gone over a handful of bumps here and we've gone around some sharp turns. and it's just going to be interesting to see if we can truly feel the difference, and we're going to talk about that when we get into the Wildtrak. But first, let's just comment again on the fact that we're off-road capable, and that's even down at our feet, where you can get the rubber floor as an option or standard in the Badlands, where it's not even an option. You only get carpeted floor in a Wildtrak. I am not crazy. I notice it right off the bat. The steering wheel has a different weight to it. So there's a little more resistance behind the steering. I believe it is very obvious. You can feel that there's weight behind the steering, right? So when you go into turns, it's a little more fun to drive because there's a little more resistance against you. And also, again, we start talking about the Fox Haas 3.0 system, and there's a difference. I'm not crazy here. You can feel the difference. So again, this suspension is meant to go over sand dunes. It's meant to go over rough terrain. It's meant to keep those tires on the ground as quick as they can so you can keep building momentum over those sand dunes. That's the engineering behind it. And I'm not gonna lie, like, I almost feel that the bumps feel a little stiffer in the Wildtrak right off the bat, but the performance behind driving it is different. When you go into a turn, when you're holding onto the steering wheel, you can really truly feel a difference. So when you're talking about something that's fun to drive or something that's more enjoyable around town, that's where the comment about the Wildtrak comes in. And ultimately, most of the population is probably not going to notice the steering rack difference driving around from shopping center to shopping center. At the end of the day, these are both really fun vehicles to drive. I truly enjoy the Bronco. We're on our second one. We're on our third full winter of ownership, having a Bronco in the family. They're enjoyable to have. Like, I don't get sick of them because you can take the tops off, you can take the doors off. You can go kind of fast in them because they've got a good amount of power. They're actually fun to drive. They're enjoyable. You feel like you're driving a big toy. Austin, I really think it comes down to a couple different things to think about if you're cross shopping these, whether you're buying new or used. So let's go used first, right? So if you're talking about a pre-23 Wildtrak that doesn't have the Haas 3.0, I'd really be questioning why I was buying that and not a Badlands that just is out of the box ready to hit the trails, right? It does come down to the specs that the vehicles have, but if you're talking about a newer one, 23 and above, and you think you can feel the difference of that Haas 3.0 as well as the steering rack difference that's out of the Raptor Bronco in the Wildtrak, like, that's the way to go. So if you're city driving and you're not hitting the trails, the Wildtrak is probably the more comfortable, I think I'm going to go off-road someday vehicle, whereas if you're actually hitting the trails, you kind of want to go Badlands.
But that's not dismissing that the Wildtrak is not capable at all. These are both super capable off-road vehicles. This one's just going to be more comfortable around the city, and this one's going to be a little bit rougher around the city, and that's about as simple as I can break it down to. So thank you guys so much for tuning into this video today here on Performance on Wheels. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe to help support this father-son journey. We look forward to seeing you next time.